So what we're covering in this course is small-sided formations. And of course, we're going to get into the various formations you can do, 7v7, 9v9. We're going to talk about the roles of players and how to present that to our teams. But also a big part of this is understanding why we do small-sided formations. In a lot of ways, we see players, parents, and even some coaches that seem resistant to small-sided formations. So almost like playing 7v7 or 9v9 is playing preschool soccer or elementary soccer, and that the game is 11v11. And if you're not playing 11v11, you're not playing the game. So one of the things we look at is why do we do small-sided formations? What is the benefit? How is this more appropriate for our players in their development? Now we've shown you two videos so far. You saw the hockey one and the soccer one, and what this is showing is adults playing the game on pitches that create the same problems that young players are facing. When you look at the soccer video, for example, the field 200 yards long, over 100 yards wide, the huge goals, the huge penalty area, and you look at the way those players were playing, they did not have the physical capabilities. They didn't have the size, the strength, the speed, the stamina to play the game on that field. If I were to tell you as an 11v11 coach, I want you to take your U15 team, but instead of practicing on normal fields, I want you to practice on this one. I want you to play your games on this huge field. What would be the benefit to your players? Would they get anything out of it? Or would it be detrimental to their development? And the answer is simple. It would be detrimental. They can't play the game as it's supposed to be played on a field that size. And now we see the same thing with younger players. They don't have the physical capability to play on a full-size pitch. So the small-sided games allow us to tailor the game to the physical and mental capabilities of young players. The United States Soccer Federation has set forth the rules and structure for our small-sided games, our 7v7 and 9v9 games that are played by U9 through U12 players. The goal of these rules and structure is to create the best possible environment for players of these ages to develop. When we're looking at the benefits of small-sided games, we're seeing improved individual technical development, facilitating a better tactical understanding of the game and tactical development, matching the field size to physical abilities of the players so that they're capable of doing what we want to see on a big field on a field that is more their size. We're looking at increasing the individual player time with the coach by limiting the size of rosters, more involvement for each player in the game, not necessarily talking actual game time, but with the size of the field and the number of players on the field, every player is more involved. We're looking at more attacking situations, which is a benefit both from teaching the attacking concepts, but also teaching defensive concepts. We're looking at more enjoyable and exciting games, and part of this process is getting kids to love the game. So creating more enjoyable and exciting games will draw kids into the game of soccer. And we're also looking to encourage players to participate in the game. Now, before we get into the specific formations, how to run them, how to coach them, and all that, it is important that we understand why we're doing small-sided games. So we're going to go through this a little slower and really look at how these small-sided games allow us to present the game better. The first one we discussed, of course, was individual technical development. And it should come as no shock to coaches. One of the things that we talk about constantly is frequency of touches. Players need to be touching the ball frequently, both in practice and in games. The smaller rosters, fewer players translates into more activity per player. And this not only is in games, of course, but also translates into practice. We're also looking at the smaller fields, means every player is more actively involved, more apt to get touches on the ball. We're looking at the tighter spaces require better control. If you were to take 9-year-olds and put them on an 11v11 field, my strategy for you, if you want to win, kick the ball big, put it into space, and let the fastest player on the field go chase it down and score. By doing that, you'll win a lot of games. But is that really the best environment for our players to develop? So the smaller games requires them to be better with the technique and make faster decisions. The second and the big one for today is because we want our players to make more decisions and less complicated decisions during the game. When you look at the 11v11 game, it's extremely complex. Even elite level professionals sometimes struggle to react to the game, to the challenges that are presented to them. When we look at the tactical aspects of the game, we want our players to be able to switch the field, bypass the midfield when necessary, create those diagonal attacking balls, make overlapping runs. We want them to transition from attack into defense and recover. If the field is too big, they will not be able to do that. Asking a 9-year-old to make a 70-yard recovery run frequently during a game is too much. If we tell them we want you to switch the field, but the field is 65 yards wide and their kicks only go 30 yards, every time they switch the field, they're switching the field, they're putting the ball in the middle, they're centering the ball. Very quickly, the players will quit trying to switch the field. That's detrimental to their development. So we want the field to be appropriate to their physical abilities. Smaller rosters also mean more decisions per player. So while the game is simplified and the field is more appropriate, that's all great, but we also get the added benefit of fewer players means each player is getting more opportunities to make decisions that affect the game. As we discussed a little bit, smaller fields mean full-size tactics can be used. We can switch the field. We can play the big ball to the 9 bypassing the midfield. We can do overlapping runs without having the player be 80 yards from goal. And finally, fewer players allow us to focus on foundation tactics. Now, when you look at the various tactics that we will teach players at 11v11, it's immense. There are virtually countless things that we need to teach them, ways to play the game, ways to react to the game. But when you look at it and break it down into its simplest form, there's a basic foundation that underlies all of those tactics. We're looking at our shape and possession. We're looking at supporting angles. We're looking at diagonal passes. We're looking at recognizing when to switch the field. We're looking at using our goalkeeper to aid in possession. Breaking the game down into these simple forms so players can learn the basic foundation tactics is also essential in the development. The third one is a reduced field size. Now we've hit on this already, so we can go pretty quickly. The field needs to be appropriate to the size of the player, their physical capabilities. We want them to be able to execute full field tactics on their field. So now again, they can switch the field. They can make those attacking runs. They can play the ball 2 lines forward. When we look at the larger fields, as I mentioned a little earlier, it places a stronger emphasis on physical ability. That taller, stronger, faster player will succeed on a large field over the technical player. Now, is there a benefit to being stronger, faster, bigger in the 11v11 game? Well, absolutely. But there's also a need for that technical player. In fact, the technical player is more highly desired frequently. The smaller fields allow us to place an emphasis on technical ability, to push players to develop into better technical players. The next one we talked about is our players having more involved game time. Now, we're not just talking about minutes on the pitch. If you look at a 10-player roster on a 7v7 versus a 15-player roster in 11v11, the game time on a percentage basis is fairly comparable. But what we're looking at is in the small-sided games, they are getting more active game time. When they're on the field, it is rare that they will be more than 30 yards from goal. Every player will be actively involved, constantly having to make decisions. We also want players to understand not only their role on the ball. Every player knows that when I have the ball, there's things I have to do. We want them to understand what their role is off the ball. It is tough to get a 9-year-old to get involved off the ball. Even more difficult if they're 50, 60 yards away from the ball, to convince them that they have something to prepare for. The smaller field means every player is in closer proximity and is more actively involved in the game. We want young players to understand how to play both sides of the ball. Now, in the 11v11 game, good teams understand all 11 players are involved in the attack when we are in possession. Everyone has a job, everyone has a responsibility. When we lose the ball, all 11 players are involved in getting it back. So that is something that we want to make sure that we are instilling in our teams at a young age. The small-sided games and the smaller fields helps push this. The smaller fields mean every player is in closer proximity to the ball. What it also means is every player's responsibilities are increased. It is easy sometimes when you have 4 defensive backs. If one of them struggles, the other 3 can make up for it. When you look at the 7v7 game and even the 9v9 game, each player is responsible for more of the field as far as what they need to take care of. So this requires players to step forward. The next thing we're looking for is more opportunities to score goals. Now, part of this, as the USSF has listed, is pure excitement. One of the things that we're trying to do as coaches is to build a passion for this game. We want to encourage players to develop that drive to want to play. And goal-scoring opportunities excite players. So that's a big part of it. There's also tactical and developmental implications of this as well. When you look at the 2 most important aspects of the 11v11 game, yeah, possession's important. Our movement off the ball is important. But in its simplest terms, the most vital parts of the game are when the opposition brings the ball into our defensive third and prepares to attack. How do we defend? How do we take away opportunities? How do we defend individually? How do we defend as a group? And conversely, when we have the ball and we enter the final third, how do we take that ball in the final third and from that create a quality scoring opportunity? How do we turn those quality scoring opportunities into shots on goal? How do we turn shots on goal into finishing for goals? So the small-sided games provide nearly constant attacking opportunities to take advantage of from an attacking standpoint, but also how to coach how to defend those opportunities. Finally, we're looking at the social aspects of it. Again, we're not talking about giggling, meeting people, and having fun. That can be a part of it sometimes. But we're looking at understanding the psychological makeup of players. Smaller rosters and fewer players means every player on the field is more active. They have a more important role in the field. This encourages them to get involved. And anyone who has children or has coached young ages knows that we have some kids that just are not as apt to get involved, whether it's fear of failure, whether it is uncertainty. Fewer players will encourage them to be more involved. Now finally, when we are talking about our small-sided formations in this course, ultimately what we're looking at is how do we present this game to players? How do we coach the small-sided games? And the most important thing to remember as we're going through this, the small-sided games will be different than the 11v11 game. We're going to coach it differently. But as we're presenting this game to young players, we need to make sure that we are always making a direct connection to the 11v11 game. Anything that you coach to a U9 through U12 player, you must also be willing to say to a U13 up player playing the 11v11 game. Of course, it doesn't mean that coaching is the same. There are things that you will present to a 17-year-old that you won't present to an 11. But everything that we are teaching them, U9 through U12, has to have a direct connection to that 11v11 game we're preparing them for. We want to encourage the same principles of play that we want to see in the 11v11 game. So what we're looking for is, even at 7v7, 9v9, do we have width in our possession? Are we reinforcing good supporting angles, supporting possession of the ball? The balls that we are playing, we want to see diagonal runs. We want to see diagonal balls. We want to see depth in our attack, getting our number 9 high, stretching the defense, maximizing our use of the field. We want to see zonal defending. Now with 2 back and a 2-3-1, there's some things missing in our zonal defending. But for that first and second defender, the principles are still the same. Are we getting our 7s and 11s to drop back to become that third defender and provide our balance? Transition. Now, one of the great things about the small-sided games is you are constantly transitioning from attack to defense, attack to defense. So we need to make sure that we are reinforcing the proper aspects of transition. We're looking at team attacking and team defending, not 1v1, not give it to a player and let him go, but as a unit. Are we attacking as a group? Are we defending as a group? We want to reinforce playing from the back, not just big balls, but are we actually possessing and creating attacking opportunities every time we get possession? We also want to make sure as we're doing this, we're presenting different play styles and attacks and tactics. when you look at the most common formation at 7v7 is 2-3-1. The most common formation at 9v9 is probably the 3-3-2. And there's many different ways that you can play the game within those styles, but also are we presenting different formations to them so that they understand how to drop and protect the lead, how to play counterattacking soccer, how to play possession soccer, how to play high pressure. So are we teaching them the different styles of the game that are still going to be present when they get to the 11v11? Ultimately, the goal is everything that we are teaching them is preparing them to be successful with the 11v11 game.